you were handed a diploma and told that was the beginning. Marcus Aurelius was handed an empire at age 19 and told the same thing. One of them collapsed under the weight of it. I'll let you figure out which one that is. Here's what nobody is going to say to your face. The problem isn't the economy. The problem isn't the job market or your degree or the cost of rent. Those are real. But they're not the thing that's actually killing you. The thing that's killing you is that you were trained for 18 straight years to perform inside a controlled system. Show up, get graded, advance. And now, the system is gone. And you're standing in front of your life, which has no rubric, no syllabus, and no professor who owes you feedback. That moment, that specific disorientation, has a name. It had a name 2,000 years ago. And the man who diagnosed it most clearly wasn't a therapist or a career coach. He was a Roman emperor who governed 70 million people while simultaneously losing children, fighting a war on two fronts, and managing advisors who were trying to undermine him. His name was Marcus Aurelius, and what he wrote during those years, privately, for no audience, never intending it to be published, is the most useful document a broke, directionless graduate could read right now. But there's a catch to all of it, and we'll get there. The first thing Marcus Aurelius understood about human suffering is that most of it is architectural, meaning it's not what happens to you. It's the mental structure you bring to what happens to you. In the Meditations, Book 4, he writes, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That sounds like a motivational poster. It isn't. What he's describing is a cognitive technology, a method of distinguishing between what philosophers call the hegemonicon, the ruling faculty of the mind, and everything outside it. You control the former. You control nothing else. Here's the modern translation. You graduated during a period of economic compression. Entry-level roles now require 3 to 5 years of experience. Housing costs have outpaced wage growth for a decade. The institutions you were told to trust have, in several measurable ways, failed you. All of that is real. None of it is under your control. What is under your control is the story you're telling yourself about what it means. Most graduates are unconsciously running one of two narratives. In the first, I did everything right and the world didn't hold up its end. The second, I'm behind, I'm failing, and time is running out. Both narratives are architectural traps. Both produce the same result, paralysis dressed up as frustration. Marcus would look at this and say, "You've confused the obstacle with your response to the obstacle. You've let external conditions colonize internal territory that was never theirs to take." The Stoics called the corruption of that internal territory patha, destructive passions. Not emotions in general, but specifically the untrained reactions that pull the mind away from clear judgment. You're not broke because of your circumstances. You're broke, psychologically, because you handed the controls to your circumstances. That's the first thing Marcus would tell you, and he'd say it without flinching. But there's a second thing, and it's harder to hear. Epictetus, the former slave who taught Stoicism before Marcus studied it, opened his Enchiridion with a line that most people read quickly and forget. Some things are in our control and others not. He spent the rest of the book explaining that most people have this inverted. They treat the things outside their control as settled, and the things inside their control as uncertain. Your salary is uncertain, your employment is uncertain, your rent is uncertain. Fine. But here's what Epictetus is saying. Your judgment, your response, your values, your effort directed well, these are certain. They're yours. No market can touch them. No economy can repo them. The broke graduate, almost without exception, has the inversion. They've decided who they are based on what they have or what they earn or what their LinkedIn says. Identity built on external validation is the most fragile architecture a person can live inside. And here's the mechanism by which it destroys you. When you define yourself by your job title and you don't have one, you become nothing. When you define yourself by your income and it's humiliating, you become the humiliation. When you define yourself by your trajectory, the timeline, the milestones, the comparison to peers who seem to be further along, you become the gap. Marcus Aurelius was not confused about who he was. He was clear that his identity wasn't the purple robe, wasn't the throne room, wasn't the titles men used when they addressed him. Meditations is a private war against ego. Is conducted every morning before anyone else was awake. He wrote to himself, "Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly." That's not nihilism. That's excavation. Strip the title. Strip the income. Strip the social markers. What is actually left? Most people don't know. That's not a criticism. It's a diagnosis. And knowing the diagnosis is the beginning of something real. Because here's what sits underneath that question. And it's what Epictetus and Marcus both pointed toward. If you can answer it, you're no longer broke in the way that matters. This is where it gets uncomfortable. Most men in their 20s who consume self-improvement content are not working on themselves. They are deferring their life under the cover of preparation. They're reading, watching, listening, optimizing their morning routines, their reading lists, their productivity systems. They have notebooks full of Marcus Aurelius quotes, and they're producing almost nothing. Marcus would identify this immediately. He had a word for it, and it appears throughout the Meditations. Fantasia, the impression. Specifically, the seductive impression of doing work without the reality of it. Seneca, writing around the same era in his letters to Lucilius, put it more bluntly. While we are postponing, life speeds by. He wrote that to a friend named Lucilius, who was spending his days in preparation for a life he kept not beginning. The trap is sophisticated because it feels like ambition. It has the texture of ambition. You're consuming, improving, aspiring. But consuming philosophy is not practicing philosophy. Reading about discipline is not discipline. Here's the practical anatomy of the trap. A 24-year-old watches a video about Marcus Aurelius. He feels inspired. He downloads Meditations, reads the first 30 pages, feels deeply understood, and puts it down. He watches 3 more videos. He makes a list of habits he'll start Monday. He tells a friend he's working on himself. He is not working on himself. Marcus worked on himself by governing an empire. Every day. Whether he felt like it or not. Whether the war was going badly or not. Whether grief was splitting him open or not. Do not indulge in dreams of what you mean to do, he wrote. Act. The philosophy was not his escape from difficulty. It was the framework he used to function inside difficulty. That distinction is everything. Stop. Because here's the thing that almost everyone gets wrong about Stoicism. And it's the reason most people pick it up, feel briefly inspired, and then find it doesn't change anything. Stoicism is not a philosophy of acceptance. It's a philosophy of accurate discrimination. People here control what you can control, let go of what you can't, and they turn it into passivity. They use it to feel better about not trying hard enough, not demanding more from themselves, not confronting what's actually broken in their life. Marcus never did that. Neither did Seneca. Neither did Epictetus. All 3 of them pushed into the hardest version of their lives. Marcus chose to return to war when he could have sent generals. Seneca walked back into the court of Nero, the most dangerous man in Rome, because he believed the work mattered. Epictetus, who had been enslaved and had his leg broken by a master, did not preach quiet acceptance. He preached the fierce ownership of your inner state while refusing to be defined by your outer circumstances. The philosophy is not comfortable. It's clarifying. And the clarification it offers a broke 23-year-old is not, It's okay that you're struggling. The clarification is, here is exactly where your power is. Here is where it ends. And here is what it costs you every single day that you confuse the two. Which brings us to what Marcus would say last. And it's the hardest thing in the book. Nietzsche named it. The Stoics practiced it. Marcus lived it. Amor fati. The love of fate. Not tolerance of fate. Not grudging acceptance of fate. The active, chosen, a disciplined love of the reality in front of you, including the parts of it that are unfair, painful, delayed, and humiliating. Marcus Aurelius buried 4 of his children. He fought the Marcomannic Wars for 13 years. He dealt with a co-emperor, Lucius Verus, who was, by all accounts, considerably more interested in parties than governance. He watched a plague tear through Rome. He was surrounded daily by men who flattered him to his face and conspired against him elsewhere. He wrote in Meditations Book 5, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." That's not a man who had a good run of luck and found peace. That's a man who built a structure of mind so deliberate that adversity became fuel. Here is what amor fati actually means for you. The degree you have that isn't landing interviews. That's the material. The rejection from the company you wanted. That's the material. The friend who's earning twice what you earned 2 years out. That's the material. The debt, the uncertainty, the gap between where you are and where you thought you'd be. All of it, every piece, is the material. Not material to be suffered through and survived. Material to be worked with. The broke graduate who can step into amor fati doesn't become passive. He becomes precise. He stops spending energy resisting reality and starts spending it inside reality. He builds differently than someone who started with advantages. He understands the terrain in a way that comfortable people never will. Marcus didn't have a good life by accident. He built a philosophical architecture, and he lived inside it every single day, under conditions that would have broken lesser frameworks. You have the same architecture available to you. It was written down. It survived 2,000 years. You can read it tonight. The question is whether you'll use it the way Marcus used it, as a daily working tool, tested against actual difficulty, or the way most people use it, as ambient inspiration that makes no contact with how you actually spend your Tuesday. There is one more concept, the most important one, and Marcus returned to it more than any other in the Meditations. Memento mori. Remember that you will die. This isn't morbidity. This is the most practical tool in the Stoic arsenal. Marcus wrote, "You could leave life right now. Ye let that determine what you do and say and think." He wasn't being dramatic. He was being efficient. Here's what memento mori cuts through. All the ways you're postponing. The job application you haven't sent because the timing isn't right. The conversation you haven't had because you're not ready. The work you haven't started because you don't feel qualified yet. The version of yourself you keep not becoming because the conditions aren't ideal. Marcus Aurelius is standing at the edge of that and saying, the conditions will never be ideal. You will not always feel ready. The timing will not arrange itself around your comfort. And the time you have, the actual finite window of years between now and whenever this ends, is being spent right now, whether you're using it or not. That's not a threat. That's a fact. And Marcus believed facts, faced clearly, produce better lives than comfortable illusions maintained indefinitely. Here is the summary of what he would tell a broke graduate today, stripped of all the framing. Your circumstances are not your identity. Your response to your circumstances is the only territory you own. Stop building yourself on external results that have not arrived. Build yourself on the quality of your judgment and the honesty of your effort. The difficulty you're facing is not an obstacle to a good life. It is a good life if you engage it with the right tools. And the tools are available. They've been available for 2,000 years. The only question he'd leave you with, and this is the one that stays, is whether you'll read the Meditations as a man looking for comfort, or as a man looking for instruction. Those are not the same book.